Well, thank you. Thank you, Susie. Good evening. That was an unexpected but very much appreciated special treat to hear the Vice President. My old friend Joe, you know. And I'm very honored to be with all of you tonight. Obviously, I want to thank everybody here on behalf of President Obama, on behalf of Vice President Biden, and on behalf of Secretary Kerry and the entire national security team. I'm here tonight largely for the work I've done for this president and this administration. And any recognition I deserve is obviously humbly received on behalf of many colleagues, including civil servants, military officers, foreign service professionals that I've been privileged to work with in recent years. I also want to acknowledge my dear friend, General John Allen, who is sharing the program with us tonight. He is one of our finest military leaders, and we're lucky that he brought his sharp mind, his strategic vision, and his commitment to excellence to our diplomatic pursuits, including our pursuit of Middle East peace. I consider it a blessing to have had the opportunity to work with him on this mission and to call him my friend. Now, as this audience knows very well, Israelis are not known for beating around the bush. In fact, speaking Dugri, being direct, is a welcome and essential part of Israeli political culture. So, following the dramatic events that unfolded here in the United States in early November, and mindful of whose city I'm in, let me first address the subject I know is on everyone's mind. Can the Chicago Cubs win back-to-back World Series championships? Dan, I believe they can. Now, on the other subjects that bring us together, Israel Policy Forum and its esteemed chair emeritus, Peter Joseph, let me get straight to the point. No one is a bigger fan of Peter Joseph than I am, although we've heard from some awfully big ones tonight. And few, I think, can compete with me in terms of the sheer span of years for which I've turned to IPF, many of those years with Peter at the helm, in search of sage advice, ideas on peacemaking, inclusive dialogue, and for galvanizing community and political support to help Israelis and their neighbors achieve the peace and security they deserve. IPF was established at almost the exact same time that I began my career in public service as a Middle East analyst and foreign policy advisor. I read the Peace Pulse before I was reading Haaretz or Ynet. I sat at IPF roundtables in Washington with legends like Sam Lewis, of blessed memory, and brainstormed how to strengthen American leadership. And whether I was on Capitol Hill or in the White House or more recently as ambassador to Israel, I've met with countless IPF delegations, Peter's almost always among them, and have been enriched by their ideas and reflections. I've had the good fortune for meeting with many of IPF supporters and leaders over the years. Many of them are here tonight, including the new president, Susie Gelman, Peter's close friends and partners, Jack Bentheim and Michael Zonenfeld, as well as longtime supporters like Seymour Reich, Karen Adler, Robert Goodkind, Bob Sugarman, Alan Solo, Susie Stern, Charles Bromford, Michael Young. There are many others, and I apologize I'm not mentioning all. And, of course, including top-notch staff like our colleague David Halpern. Throughout over 2 decades of engagement, especially these past 8 years serving President Obama, I've been truly fortunate to be able to work with Peter and with IPF. I always come away from my conversations with Peter richer and wiser. And just as important as has already been mentioned, I've taken inspiration, Peter, from your unceasing dedication to the cause, which is a particularly great gift at those moments when hopes flag and frustrations rise. As everyone in the hall knows, Peter is well-informed, thoughtful, full of wisdom. Few can match his steadfast commitment through thick and thin to the cause of peace and securing for Israel and its neighbors a brighter future. Something Peter and I have in common, and Peter, you may yourself not be aware of this, is that our first experiences in Israel coincided. We were both living in Israel in the aftermath of the Yom Kippur War in 1973. We both saw close up, Peter as a young adult, myself as a young child, the cataclysm of war and the heartbreak of an entire nation and the deep sense of vulnerability that Israelis have had to live with for the country's entire existence. For me, and I'm sure for Peter as well, it was a foundational experience that helped forge our lifelong connections to and concern for the Jewish state. And to state the obvious, Peter and I both share a deep commitment to securing Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state living in peace with its neighbors. Peter, you've been such an extraordinary leader pursuing this Avodat Kodesh, this holy work. So tonight, I join everyone here in saluting Peter. Now, with the remainder of my remarks, I'll be brief. I want to just make a few observations drawn from my years in public service, and particularly these past 8 years. The first and most important observation I would make is about security, which IPF has appropriately made its focus, about how central security is if peace is to take hold and to endure. No Israeli prime minister could, would, or should sign on to a peace agreement that does not meet Israel's security needs and ensure Israel's ability to defend itself. The Israeli public would never accept it, and the experience of Gaza must never be replicated in the West Bank. So any effort to promote a two-state solution to end the conflict must ensure that Israel emerges safer, not more vulnerable. So President Obama and Secretary Kerry understood this reality from the very beginning, and that is why they asked General Allen to get involved in our peacemaking efforts and to study the problem and craft security solutions that could address Israel's security needs. General Allen tackled this challenge with his usual gusto. As Secretary Kerry described on Sunday at the Saban Forum, it constituted the most extensive work our government has ever done on this issue. General Allen recruited a large and diverse and talented team of American defense professionals who studied the security issues in depth and engaged intensively with the IDF and other Israeli security services to understand Israel's security requirements in the context of a two-state solution. Even the most creative formulas about where to draw boundaries or how to develop terms of reference or how best to engage the wider set of neighbors and stakeholders, none of that will succeed without addressing security. And the challenges are some of the most complex diplomats have faced, including how to ensure Israel can defend itself against the very real threats of terrorism, of rockets, of tunnels, of unstable neighbors, while also ensuring a peaceful Palestinian state that meets Palestinians' legitimate aspirations for independence, sovereignty, and security. General Allen and his team, consulting closely with the IDF, developed a number of very innovative ideas to address each and every security requirement. Some involved adopting technology-based solutions. Some involved U.S. assistance and training. Some addressed enhancing security cooperation between Israelis, Palestinians, and other countries. And others touched on those needs that only Israel can address by itself. During these efforts, we learned that there are indeed solutions to even the thorniest security questions. And I'm absolutely certain that I can confidently predict that when a two-state solution is ultimately achieved, the security arrangements will be heavily influenced by General Allen's work. It's already influencing outside policy and academic work on the subject, and I want to applaud IPF and General Reshef with Commanders for Israel Security, and of course the Center for New American Security for their most recent initiative to advance the discussion on the security features of a two-state solution. None of you could be doing more relevant work. I'm very proud that under President Obama, not only has defense and intelligence cooperation between the United States and Israel reached unprecedented levels, our defense support has also now risen to the highest level in history. As the Vice President mentioned in the video, with the signing of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding in September, the United States has pledged $38 billion in military assistance to Israel over the next decade, the largest single package we've ever granted to any country, and a further guarantor that Israel will be able to maintain its qualitative military edge. This MOU's effect is already being felt. Against the backdrop of the arrival in Israel next week of Israel's first F-35 Joint Strike Fighters, Israel has placed a new order for 17 additional F-35s, and further investments in Israel's life-saving missile technologies, Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow 3 are being made. We want our assistance and our commitment to Israel's security to also give Israelis the reassurance and confidence they need to make peace, as it has done for decades. And on these questions of security and peace, I know General Allen will have more to add. A second observation is about the importance of engaging Israel's neighbors and key regional stakeholders. Palestinians need Arab political support and at times their help during negotiations. Israelis rightfully seek assurance that the prospect of broader and full normalization and integration into the region in the context of an Israeli-Palestinian peace would be real and irrevocable. The Arab Peace Initiative, while not a blueprint for a final agreement, made an important contribution in this regard. Only Israeli and Palestinian leaders, of course, can make the necessary decisions to reach a peace agreement. But when we limit the solution set to Israelis and Palestinians on their own, as perhaps was the case, for example, at Camp David II, we often miss out on the tremendous upside of having neighbors and other third parties more closely, even intimately, involved. Secretary Kerry understands this better than anyone, and he was adept during the 2013-2014 negotiations in drawing regional stakeholders more deeply into our efforts. There are many examples I could highlight. Among them are numerous meetings Secretary Kerry held with Arab foreign ministers, including in Washington with the participation of Vice President Biden, and these produced important conceptual shifts, such as on the viability of territorial swaps and positive signals related to the Arab Peace Initiative. The Secretary continues, even today, to consult widely on these issues across the region. Now, recent trends in the region have even improved prospects for a positive role by the Arab states. It's absolutely true, as Prime Minister Netanyahu and others have observed, that the alignment of interests between Israel and its Sunni Arab neighbors with regards to the threats of Iran and ISIL create new opportunities for Israel to work with regional parties, including on the Palestinian issue. At the same time, as Secretary Kerry emphasized on Sunday, quote, there will be no advance and separate peace with the Arab world, end quote, without progress toward Israeli-Palestinian peace. These two goals are much likely to move together in parallel rather than in sequence. While the hardest decisions are up to Israelis and Palestinians, we should never lose sight of the fact that it will take engaged and supportive regional parties to achieve and sustain progress toward peace. Third, we believe there is also a role for plain talk when it comes to obstacles about peacemaking. I speak specifically here about actions the parties take that make it harder to achieve our shared goal, actions that push the conflict toward a one-state reality and dim prospects for a negotiated two-state solution. We believe the steady drift away from a two-state solution, as documented most recently in the Quartet report released on July 1st, must be arrested and reversed if we are ever to break out of the current dangerous stalemate. And in this regard, we believe it's best to speak clearly, as the Quartet report and our statements do. We have been outspoken in condemning terrorism and the incitement that often inspires terrorism and the failure to condemn terrorism from the Palestinian side. Tragically, we've had to do so far too often in these past 2 years. We speak clearly about the risks posed by settlement expansion, home demolitions, or the constriction of Palestinian development in Area C from the Israeli side. We make no bones about condemning Hamas's terrorism, its illegal weapons smuggling and stockpiling, its violent rule, and its rejectionism. Each of these trends is harming the prospects of a two-state solution and making a one-state reality which serves no one's interests more likely. That is why we are deeply concerned about the advancement of proposed legislation that would allow for the legalization of Israeli settlement outposts in the West Bank. And it is also why I have engaged Israeli political figures for some time now, privately, respectfully, and behind the scenes on this important issue. Fourth, I want to talk about the critical role played by Israel's vibrant civil society and the importance of the United States continuing to invest in and nurture this necessary part of ending the conflict. On this score, I'm speaking broadly. There's a need to broaden and deepen our dialogue about the challenges and opportunities of a two-state solution with every segment of Israeli society. I've sought to do just that during my nearly 6 years as ambassador, including engaging previously neglected segments like the ultra-Orthodox population, the national religious population, and Arab communities. There is no doubt in my mind we need to do more. Israeli society is dynamic and changing, and if we fail to fully engage and nurture a dialogue with all segments, we may miss future opportunities to both hear and address their concerns and to help ensure their support for a two-state solution. We should also continue and perhaps even increase our financial support for educators and civil society organizations throughout Israel and across Israeli and Palestinian communities that promote tolerance, coexistence, peaceful dialogue, a shared society, and equality and greater opportunity for all. Take, for example, the Max Rain Hand-in-Hand School in Jerusalem. It is an extraordinary place where Jewish and Arab students not only learn together in each other's languages, but entire communities are woven together through their children's pursuit of academic excellence. It's a school and a community environment that is infused with the values of acceptance and understanding. President Obama welcomed 2 ninth-grade students from the school at the White House 2 years ago, one Jewish and one Arab, and we have provided generous financial support through our Agency for International Development for Hand-in-Hand to expand their network around the country. This school, together with dozens of other local programs supported by the U.S. government, and hundreds of others supported by our international partners and by so many American communities and philanthropists. All of these help to create a safety net during times of worsening political stalemate, as we've experienced these past 2 years. They're equally as important for ensuring that future generations will be steered away from conflict, from rejectionism, from demonizing the other, and instead be nurtured on models that help each side understand the other's needs and find compromises that meet the requirements of both sides. So these are just a few observations. There are many others. Yet I also wanted to make the general point that at a time of transition, as we're in our country, it's a particularly ripe moment for reflection. We need to think about what works, what does not work, and we need to approach the task with humility. Our diplomacy must adapt to changing circumstances and political realities, and to do so requires political will, but also a willingness to take stock and shift approaches when needed. What has not changed over time is America's bedrock commitment to a two-state solution. At the moment, as Secretary Kerry said Sunday, this may continue to be an uphill struggle, but our goal remains a strong, secure, Jewish, democratic Israel at peace with its Palestinian neighbors. It's in our national interest. It's important for regional stability, although not a panacea. And perhaps most of all, it is vital for our ally Israel's future. For the remaining weeks of President Obama's administration, we will continue to work hard to promote Israel's security, defend its legitimacy, oppose boycotts against Israel, and strongly support steps that will further the chances of Arab-Israeli peace. And that is another reason why I want to conclude again by thanking IPF and congratulating Peter Joseph. Peter, may you go from strength to strength. Thank you.